Welcome to Living Your Senior Life, the podcast where we explore everything that makes life after 55 richer, fuller, and more adventurous. I'm Mark, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Debbie. And today we are diving into something a little different and honestly pretty exciting. I want to be upfront before we dive in. Neither Debbie nor I are immigration attorneys, and nothing in this episode should be taken as legal advice. What we're exploring today is one person's personal research journey into Canadian citizenship by descent. Citizenship eligibility can be complex, and everyone's situation is different, so please verify current rules through official Canadian government sources at canada.ca or consult a qualified immigration lawyer for your specific situation. With that said, let's talk about how a casual Friday night rabbit hole led one woman to discover she might already be a Canadian citizen, and how you might be too. So grab a cup of coffee, tea, or your water, get comfortable, and let's get started.
Imagine you are sitting on your couch, just a random Friday night, right? You're idly scrolling through the news on your phone, and you click on this headline about a foreign government passing some new legislation.
Just a dry administrative update, right?
Exactly. Something about citizenship laws in a country that's, hundreds or maybe even thousands of miles away from where you are.
Yeah.
So you read the article, you put your phone down, and in that span of 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You realize something completely impossible.
Oh, it's a totally wild scenario.
Right. That stroke of a pen by a foreign legislature didn't just change their laws. It legally made you a citizen of their country.
Without you even doing anything.
Exactly. You haven't moved. You haven't filed a single piece of paperwork. You haven't even visited the place. But legally, you belong to them and they belong to you.
I mean, it completely upends our fundamental understanding of national identity, honestly.
It really does.
Because we are so conditioned to view citizenship as this fixed geographical reality,
Yeah, like you're born there, or you go through hell to get there.
Right, exactly. A status you're born into within specific borders, or something you acquire through this grueling, years-long immigration process. The idea that a legislative update could just instantly rewrite the legal identity of millions of people living outside its borders, that is a staggering shift in international law.
And that is the exact reality we are exploring in today's deep dive.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. We are looking at this personal essay we found, and it's titled The Northward Line, Proving Ancestral Canadian Citizenship.
Yeah, highly recommend reading it.
For sure. The author basically documents their own Friday night rabbit hole. This sudden, totally unexpected journey of discovering they have likely been a Canadian citizen their entire life.
And just had no idea.
Without knowing it at all. So our mission today is to unpack this massive, recent change in Canadian law that made this possible. We're going to examine the digital tools that let someone prove a centuries-old lineage in, a matter of hours.
And crucially, we'll explore how you might be able to replicate this exact same process for yourself.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I think to fully grasp the magnitude of what the author discovered, we really need to look at the catalyst.
The specific legislation, yeah.
Right. What actually happened in Canada?
Well, in December of 2025, Canada passed Bill C-3.
Bill C-3. Yep.
Okay. Colloquially, it's known as the Lost Canadians Act. And this legislation, it really represents a historical inflection point in how a nation defines its sovereign borders.
And its people, really. Because the author makes it super clear this isn't just a minor tweak to some visa program.
No, not at all.
Bill C-3 fundamentally rewrites the rules of citizenship by descent. Because under the old system, right, the Canadian government had this very strict built-in expiration date for claiming citizenship outside the country.
Yeah, the previous framework operated on a strict first-generation limit.
A first-generation limit. Okay, so how did that work?
So, say a Canadian citizen had a child born outside of Canada, like in the United States, for example.
Okay, pretty common.
That child was automatically recognized as a Canadian citizen. The jurisdiction basically extended outward for exactly one generation.
Right. But then what happens if that kid grows up?
Well, if that child, who was born abroad, then grew up and had their own child outside of Canada, the chain was legally severed.
Wow. Just cut off.
Exactly. The Canadian government's stance was essentially that the geographical and cultural tie had degraded too far.
I see.
So that third generation, they had absolutely no legal claim to citizenship by descent.
Okay, so the old law treated citizenship almost like a radio signal broadcasting from the border.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right, like it was strong enough to reach the first generation living in the U.S., but by the time it hit the second generation, it was just pure static. The signal dropped out completely.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah.
So how does Bill C-3 change that mechanism?
Well, Bill C-3 essentially replaces that degrading radio signal with, like, a buried fiber optic cable that extends endlessly backward through time.
Endlessly? Wait, really?
Pretty much. The new legislation dictates that anyone born before December 15th, 2025, who can trace an unbroken line of descent to a Canadian-born ancestor, may legally qualify as a Canadian citizen right now.
That is wild.
It does not matter if that ancestor is a parent, a grandparent, a great-grandparent, or even further back in the lineage.
So the distance doesn't matter anymore.
Exactly. If the physical lineage is unbroken, the legal standing remains intact.
You know, what fascinates me about the author's breakdown of this law is the specific legal phrasing they use.
Yeah, they're very careful about that.
They are. They point out that under Bill C-3, they are not applying to become a Canadian citizen. They are applying for a certificate to prove they already are one.
Yes.
That feels like a massive psychological and legal distinction.
Oh, what's fascinating here is how that distinction entirely flips the power dynamic of the modern immigration process.
Totally. Because usually you're just begging to be let in.
Right. When an individual applies for citizenship in a foreign country, the state holds all the leverage. They evaluate your merit, your economic value, your background, and the state ultimately decides whether to grant you entry.
It's totally up to them.
But under Bill C-3, the dynamic shifts from an application to a reclamation.
A reclamation. I like that word for this.
You aren't asking for permission to join the state. You are presenting a documented fact of your existence.
Yeah.
And you are legally compelling the state to recognize a status you've held since your first breath.
Okay, so the old law was like a VIP club where a member could only bring a +1 at the door.
Yeah, sure.
But Bill C-3 turns citizenship into like a golden ticket that gets passed down through the family attic indefinitely.
Indefinitely, as long as you can prove it.
Right. But surely it can't just be a free-for-all. There has to be a catch in how you prove this unbroken line. The state isn't just going to take an applicant's word for it.
Oh, definitely not. That is the obvious hurdle here.
Right. Like if I march up to the Canadian consulate and just declare, hey, my great-great-grandfather was born in Nova Scotia, they need proof.
They need a lot of proof.
So how does a government actually vet a lineage claim that spans multiple centuries and crosses international borders?
Well, the burden of proof rests entirely on the individual claiming the citizenship, and it is a formidable barrier.
I can imagine.
The Canadian government requires an airtight, uninterrupted, chronological paper trail.
Airtight.
Completely. The applicant must produce verifiable, state-recognized documentation anchoring each generation to the next.
So you have to tie every single person together.
Ultimately tying the earliest ancestor to physical Canadian soil. Any gap in the timeline, any missing birth certificate or unverified census record, it compromises the integrity of the whole unbroken line.
Wow. Okay, so that stringent requirement bridges us directly to the author's narrative in The Northward Line.
Yes, their personal story is a perfect case study for this.
Because the essay isn't just some legal analysis. It is literally a masterclass in how to actually unearth that centuries-old paper trail.
It really is.
And the author provides some crucial context here about the reality of genealogy research. Because, 30 years ago, mapping a family tree required a monumental amount of physical labor.
Oh, it was a totally different world.
Right? You had to mail written requests to obscure county courthouses, pay for physical copies of vital records, and then just wait months for a clerk to hopefully find your family name in some dusty basement archive.
Yeah, it was a discipline completely restricted by geography and the slow grind of physical mail.
Yeah.
A researcher was entirely dependent on surviving paper records sitting in disparate, unlinked physical locations.
But the author abandoned those physical methods years ago. They say they transferred their findings to a digital Ancestry.com account back in 2008.
And then just completely forgot about it.
Right. The account sat dormant for nearly 2 decades. But then, on a Friday night, fresh off reading the headlines about Bill C-3, they logged back in.
And everything had changed.
The landscape of their family tree had completely transformed. How did a dormant account suddenly have all the answers waiting for them?
Well, we are looking at the invisible power of relational databases and algorithmic data scraping.
Okay, so the computers were doing the work.
Exactly. Between 2008 and 2025, genealogy websites evolved. They went from simple digital filing cabinets into massive, interconnected neural networks of historical data.
It's crazy to think about, just running in the background.
Right. While the author's account sat dormant, the algorithms were constantly working. So when another user in a different state uploaded a marriage certificate,
Oh, I see.
or when some historical organization digitized a forgotten parish registry, the system automatically cross-referenced those new billions of data points against the author's existing tree.
So it's actively building the connections for you.
The algorithm actively wove together a web of verified historical connections. It effectively did decades of manual archival research while the author slept.
That is just incredible. So the author follows this newly generated digital breadcrumb trail, and they hit a massive breakthrough.
A huge one.
The algorithm flags a man named Abraham Peter Holm. This is the author's great-grandfather.
Right.
And he's located in the 1880 United States federal census, living in Motley, Morrison County, Minnesota.
Very specific.
Right, he is 42 years old, and right there on the digitized census ledger, his birthplace is listed as Canada.
Which is a great start.
But more importantly, the U.S. census takers in 1880 tracked additional demographic data. The column for his father's birthplace also explicitly says Canada.
And that secondary data point is the critical vector here.
Really? Why is that so important?
Because it confirms that the lineage doesn't just stop with an immigrant. It pushes the origin point even deeper into Canadian history, establishing a multi-generational presence.
Oh, that makes sense.
However, a census record presents a unique legal vulnerability.
Wait, why is it vulnerable? It's a government document.
Well, census data is self-reported. A person simply told a government enumerator where they believe they were born.
So they could have just been guessing or lying?
Exactly. While it is a fantastic directional clue for a researcher, a vague geographical region like Canada, written on an American census form, that will never satisfy the rigorous burden of proof required by the Canadian government.
Right, they need more than just a vague region. And the author realizes this immediately. They know they need a hyper-specific geographical anchor.
They need a town, a municipality.
So they keep digging backward, using the algorithmic hints to locate Abraham's father, Henry Holm.
Right.
And they find Henry in the 1860 U.S. Census, living in Iowa. Birthplace, Canada.
Still too vague.
Still too vague. But then they hit the absolute jackpot. The algorithm links them to Henry Holm's Find a Grave memorial record.
And that changes everything.
It provides the exact specificity the Canadian government demands. It lists a definitive birth date, June 13th, 1806.
Incredible.
And crucially, it lists a precise location. Waterloo Regional Municipality, Ontario, Canada.
And that municipality detail is the bureaucratic linchpin.
The linchpin.
It transforms an ancestral rumor into a verifiable jurisdictional fact. With that specific location and date, the Canadian government can cross-reference their own historical archives.
So they can actually verify he was born on their soil.
Exactly, to confirm the individual's birth on sovereign soil. The anchor is officially set.
So from that anchor in 1806, the unbroken line just snaps into perfect focus. We start with Henry Holm, born in Waterloo, Ontario.
Right.
Henry has a son, Abraham Peter Holm. Abraham have a daughter, Maud Marks, who is the author's paternal grandmother. Maud has a son, the author's father. And that leads directly to the author.
So that's the chain.
It is a documented 5-generation bridge. And under the exact wording of Bill C-3, that unbroken line means the author is a Canadian citizen.
I mean, it is a profound realization, going from just a casual evening of web browsing to suddenly possessing a completely new legal identity.
And here's where it gets really interesting, just on a purely human level. The author describes staring at the screen, looking at the children listed under Abraham Peter Holm, and seeing the name Maud Marks hit them with incredible force.
Why is that?
Because the author had actually recently gone through the legal process of reverting to the name Marks in their daily life.
Oh, wow.
Right. To suddenly discover that this specific name was the exact thread tying them to a town in Ontario over 2 centuries ago. I mean, it wasn't just a bureaucratic victory.
No, not at all.
It was a deep psychological validation of their identity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this narrative really exemplifies the total democratization of self-discovery.
Democratization? How so?
Well, prior to these digitized algorithmic platforms, uncovering a continuous 5-generation paper trail required either substantial financial resources to hire professional historians.
Right, which most people don't have.
Exactly. Or it required an immense privilege of free time. Today, the barriers to our own history have largely evaporated.
It's just out there waiting for us.
A person can unearth a 200-year-old legal tether to a foreign nation on a Friday night, literally from their living room.
So let's transition to the practical application of this deep dive.
Hmm?
Because our source material isn't just a neat anecdote, it actually serves as a functional toolkit.
It's very practical.
For the listener tuning in right now who suspects they might have a northward line in their own family, how do they actually begin assembling this chain? What are the specific mechanisms they need to leverage?
Well, the author provides a very targeted methodology. They detail several distinct databases that serve different functions in the research process.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is Ancestry.com, which is unparalleled for its optical character recognition of old census records.
Optical character recognition, so it can actually read the messy handwriting on those old forms.
Exactly. This allows users to quickly scan massive U.S. Census databases, specifically for Canadian birthplaces, which helps establish those initial generational links.
But Ancestry is a paid service.
It is, yes.
And the author highlights the necessity of diversifying your search tools. They point heavily to familysearch.org. So why is a secondary platform so vital if Ancestry already has the census records?
Family Search is a crucial parallel tool because of its unique archival focus. First of all, it is entirely free.
Nice.
And it holds extensive collections of historical Canadian church records.
Oh, church records, not government records.
This is vital because centralized, standardized government birth certificates just did not exist in many jurisdictions in the early 19th century.
Oh, right. I didn't even think about that.
Bureaucracies of that era relied on local parishes and baptismal fonts to track the population.
So if you're looking at 1806,
to prove an 1806 birth in Waterloo, you are far more likely to need a digitized church registry than a government ledger.
that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So the toolkit includes Ancestry, Family Search, and we also mentioned findagrave.com, which provided the specific geographical anchor for Henry Holm.
Yes, that was the linchpin.
Then, once the line is established in the U.S. databases, the search obviously has to cross the border digitally.
Right, you have to prove the Canadian side.
So the toolkit includes Library and Archives Canada, which is accessible at backlacklac.gc.ca, and that is the ultimate jurisdictional authority for verifying the Canadian end of the paper trail.
Yep, that's where the Canadian government looks.
Finally, the author directs readers to canada.ca to study the exact unforgiving eligibility rules of Bill C-3.
However, we must introduce a severe reality check into this discussion right now.
Okay, lay it on us.
The author includes a prominent disclaimer in their essay, and it is imperative that we amplify it here.
Let's hear it.
The source material and our analysis of it today does not constitute legal advice.
Right. Definitely not legal advice.
While the digital discovery process can be incredibly rapid, navigating the bureaucratic reality of claiming citizenship is a totally different endeavor.
So what does this all mean for the listener who actually finds that unbroken line tonight? Like, finding your ancestor online is like finding a treasure map where X marks the spot right.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's thrilling, but it doesn't mean the gold is in your pocket yet.
No, not even close.
You still have to grab a shovel, in this case, lawyers and government paperwork, and dig. Because the algorithm gave the author their answer in a few hours. Does the Canadian government move at that same speed? You assemble the PDFs, upload them to a portal, and get a passport in the mail a week later.
If only. This raises an important question about the friction between technological speed and administrative reality.
Yeah, they don't usually match up.
The internet provides an illusion of instant resolution. You locate your great-grandfather's birth record online, and you instantly feel like a citizen.
Right, you feel like you crossed the finish line.
But nation-states operate on a timeline of rigorous legal scrutiny. The author notes that the current processing time for a Canadian citizenship certificate is approximately 10 months.
10 months of waiting. Just to get the certificate that allows you to eventually apply for the actual passport.
Exactly. And that 10-month clock only starts after you have successfully compiled a flawless legal dossier.
Flawless.
You must gather certified copies of birth certificates, marriage licenses, and death certificates for every single generation in the chain.
Which takes forever to get from all those different counties.
You have to prove legally that each person is the exact descendant of the previous one with absolutely no room for ambiguity.
And you probably shouldn't do this alone, right?
Furthermore, the author strongly advises consulting a specialized Canadian immigration attorney before even submitting the claim.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You are effectively litigating your identity against a foreign government, and a single disorganized file can result in a rejection.
It is a stark contrast, isn't it? The algorithm gives you the thrill of the hunt in an evening, but the bureaucracy demands nearly a year of meticulous, documented patience to secure the prize.
It's a test of endurance for sure.
So to bring all of these threads together, Canada's Bill C-3 has radically redefined the boundaries of its citizenry by removing those generational limits on descent. And through the power of algorithmic data scraping, individuals can now synthesize billions of historical records to uncover their unbroken lineage in a matter of hours.
Hours instead of decades.
Right. And while the legal process to formally reclaim that citizenship requires significant time and legal precision, the pathway is wide open for potentially millions of people.
It is an unprecedented convergence of legislative expansion and digital capability. A legal reality that was virtually impossible to prove 30 years ago is now accessible to anyone with an internet connection and a bit of curiosity.
The author leaves their readers with a very direct piece of advice, and we want to pass it on to you.
Yes, this is important.
If you know you have Canadian ancestry somewhere deep in your family tree, and you have old genealogy accounts just sitting a dormant log back into them,
Dust them off.
dust them off. The algorithms have spent the last decade cross-referencing the world's history. The invisible digital hints waiting for you might elevate a piece of casual family trivia into a full-blown legal revelation.
The historical records that were locked in distant basements decades ago are fully digitized and searchable today. Your history is waiting for you to simply ask the right question.
Before we close out this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. Something that pushes beyond the mechanics of the law and the websites.
Okay.
If a piece of legislation passed in a single afternoon can instantly make millions of people legal citizens of a country they have never even set foot in, what does that actually say about the nature of national identity?
It's a profound question.
Does our citizenship live in the physical soil we stand on? Does it live in the bloodlines we inherit? Or in the modern era, does our identity simply live in dormant paperwork, waiting patiently in an online database for someone to finally run the search?
It challenges the very concept of belonging. It suggests that our legal relationship to the world might be far more expansive and far more hidden than we ever realized.
It certainly makes you view your own history a little differently. The next time you think you know exactly where you come from, remember that algorithms are rewriting those boundaries every single day. Keep questioning those boundaries, keep exploring those archives, and who knows what kind of citizenship you might uncover by tomorrow morning.
So there you have it. One Friday night, one dusty Ancestry account, and a great-great-grandfather from Waterloo, Ontario named Henry Holm changed everything. Here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. If you're interested or simply curious and have Canadian ancestry anywhere in your family tree, it is absolutely worth investigating. You can find all the details from today's episode over at livingyourSeniorLife.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe and share it with a friend. For more tips, resources, and everyday encouragement for life after 50, be sure to visit livingyourSeniorLife.com. And as always, until next time, take care of yourself and live your best senior life.